Mics, camera, action! Welcome to another episode of Takaro Kids. We spoke about two big sporting events that took place in India just last week. They were...
Well, both were not in India. One
Sorry,
was in
you're
India
right.
and the other
They
one
were
was
both
in
not
Italy.
in India. I started off on the wrong foot. Yes, one happening in Italy. That's the Winter Olympics. It's going to actually get over very soon on the 22nd of February. And you have the ICC Men's T20 World Cup, which is happening. That's going to go on till March. So yeah, lots of sporting action in the country. But on the other hand, this week has seen some completely different kind of action. Very, very big and important news there. India saw the India AI Impact Summit, which took place in Delhi. And we also had our very first global climate summit called the Mumbai Climate Week.
So, like you said, two very, very important, summits. And the AI Summit, for example, is something that actually has happened for the last few years, ever since AI kind of became big, right? It started off, I think, in London in 2023. Then it went to South Korea. Then it went to Paris last year. And now it's India's turn. And what's surprising or what's very interesting is it's for the first time in what's called the Global South. So the AI India Summit, the India AI Summit, okay.
India
was very, very
AI Impact Summit.
Impact Summit, exactly.
Yes.
You're right. In New Delhi, multiple CEOs from different countries, multiple prime ministers and government officials from other countries coming in. It was super interesting. So the CEO of Anthropic, the CEO of OpenAI, the CEO of Google, Adobe, everyone was here for this and is still here for this. AI is the talk of the town globally. Everyone's talking
Yes.
about AI. So it's a very important conference and it kind of brings together all of these countries, businessmen, scientists, young people, all of them coming to talk about what AI is going to do, where it's heading, and how to actually develop it with a very sustainable and equal view. So it's not just about AI being available to people who have money or people who have access to it, but how does AI become accessible to everyone in the world? What was interesting, though, is one very, very big absence, which was Bill Gates. He was supposed to be here, who's the founder of Microsoft, but he never made it. But yeah, a lot of the other leaders were in that one place, and Narendra Modi, our prime minister, inaugurated and started the entire thing as well.
Normally when these summits happen and so many people gather in one room, there are also these partnerships that people talk about, right? How do we work with each other? Like you said, okay, yes, one part was how do we make it more accessible, help it reach more people. Also, I think the conversation also went towards how do we control or regulate AI, the technology itself, because it can go in so many different directions, right? I mean, the talk is that AI is getting smarter and smarter. In fact, now we are using AI to build AI. So you're using artificial intelligence to actually build more artificial intelligence. So it could very well go spiraling out of control. So you have to control it to some extent and regulate it and have some rules about how we use AI and what we are using it for. I think a lot of those conversations happened as well.
There are, and in fact, what's interesting is if you look at it today from a February 2026 perspective, a lot of the AI products are being developed in the US or in other regions. India is actually building for infrastructure to support this AI growth. So there's a lot of talk about, the government over the last 2 years pushing for semiconductor units being set up in India. Semiconductor units are the manufacturing facilities where they will manufacture the chips that are required to run and process all of this AI in your computers and on servers. In fact, talking about servers, India is now pushing for a lot of server infrastructure to be set up in India. AI needs hundreds and thousands of these computers, servers to work together to be able to crunch that amount of data and give you those answers so quickly. So when you go to ChatGPT and say, hey, give me a summary of the New Delhi AI Impact Summit, it is actually going through websites, it's going through news articles, it's going through so many different things to give you that summary in just a few seconds. So it's a lot of computing power that's required. And that infrastructure is something that India is starting to set up a lot. In fact, just a day or two ago, Adani announced that they're going to be spending about $1 billion to set up sustainable AI infrastructure and server farms. And that sustainable word is very, very important because it also lends very well into the other topic, which is the Mumbai Climate Week. Because all of this raw computing power requires energy,
Yeah.
requires electricity. It also requires a lot of cooling, which is water or ACs or whatever it may be to kind of cool these massive server farms. And when you're thinking about these server farms, it is huge. I mean, I can't even explain how big it could be. It could be the size of an airport, for example, right? You go to Bangalore airport, Bombay airport, server farms are like that big, right? So imagine the amount of energy that is being used to power those computers and to
Yeah.
then cool them down as well.
And when you say server farms, they're not farms like with trees and plants and rows of like cabbages and cauliflowers. You're talking about a lot of space being used up just to power AI. And so therefore they say, right, please don't use AI to like generate a random cat meme or do some silly things. Use it responsibly, use it well till we figure out how to make it more efficient to actually use AI.
Yeah, and like I said, it leads very well into the Mumbai
Yes,
Climate
it
Week, which
does.
actually happened before the AI Impact Summit. Debbie, being in Bombay and being in Mumbai, what did you see and what did you hear about the Climate Week?
Well, there was a lot of, there was advertising all around. In fact, the Gateway of India was lit up with, promotions talking about Mumbai Climate Week. They'd actually lit it up fully, talking about the fact that it's happening. And because it's a
Were
big
they
deal,
using sustainable energy for that
I hope
lighting up, or
so.
was it
I hope
electricity?
so.
Yeah.
I hope so. I didn't look into it. I hope so.
Otherwise, it would be
But
really sad.
true. But I mean, no, I think what I noticed was there was a lot of positive energy. There was a lot of buzz about Mumbai Climate Week. Now, the very fact that a global summit, like climate weeks have been happening around the world for a while, right? Various
Yeah.
cities have climate week. There's a San Francisco climate week. There's a Cincinnati climate week. There's one in South Korea. There's one, various countries around the world and cities around the world have hosted this. And this is the first time that we have a climate week in India, right?
Yeah.
And that tells you something, that this is a topic, this is a subject that we are taking very seriously in our country, and that is
It is.
always good news.
Very good news. And in fact, both of them colliding together, one after the other, is also really big for India.
Yeah, absolutely. And great footfall from what I've, seen and heard. Lots of people, lots of very young people actually also turned up at Mumbai Climate Week because they were curious. They wanted to learn. They wanted to see what was going on. Lots of people are already working the space. It's amazing to see the number of people who are actually
Awesome.
thinking and working and researching and, trying to figure out how to make this world a better place every single day. Another interesting thing for me was the focus was on various topics. Obviously, everything eventually was about how to, protect our planet, how to stop polluting it, how to use better sources of energy, like you said, right? Sustainable sources of energy, maybe it's wind, solar, water, whatever it might be, instead of, the usual fossil fuels that we use. And it was also about cities, right? Which I found extremely fascinating, right? Because you talk about climate change and, everyone across the world feels climate change. But you feel it in cities, and I think and cities are also the biggest contributors to, a lot of the pollutants, to a lot of the heat that is produced, right?
Yep.
So many of the topics were talking about how can we make our cities better? How can we make our cities more livable, more sustainable? The other important topic they talked about was how can we make sure that there is more money in this space so that we can come up with better technologies.
What does that mean? More money?
Well, yeah, of course, because everything needs money, right? If you want, for example, there are two things that you would need money for in something like this. One, as you say, is mitigation. Second is adaptation, right? One is how do you reduce fossil fuels, for example, or the emissions? How do you ensure that you're using better energy sources? How do you ensure people
and
are
fossil
transitioning?
fuels basically mean, petrol, diesel, all of those
Yes.
kind of things that we use
Yes.
for our vehicles mostly
Yes.
now. Yeah.
Exactly. How do we transition? Because it costs money, right?
What's very interesting is that in India, all our electricity, majority of it is actually coming from coal. Coal again is a fossil fuel, right? We're actually digging earth, we're picking out the coal, we're converting it and generating electricity, which then comes into most of our homes. Most of India is
Yes.
coal. So how do you kind of move away from that into, like you were saying, renewables?
Yeah, so exactly, you need money, right, to make these changes
Yeah,
happen. You have to have funds that will go and say, hey, we're going to create a new project which is going to be better. So that is one, which is reduce the ways in which we are contributing towards climate change. The second is how do we adapt? How do we prepare ourselves? Because, and we have spoken about this during the COP30 as well, if you remember.
yeah.
It is about becoming better at preparing for the changes that are happening around us. We can't
And
just
humans have
say,
always been very adaptive or
yeah,
adaptable. Adaptable. What is the right word?
I think both work. Yeah, we are extremely flexible in a lot of ways, and we do learn, and we are very smart. We learn how to make the best of the situation we're in, but sometimes it's hard. For example, a lot of island countries are most affected by global warming, right? Because the
Yeah,
water levels are rising, and they're concerned. The land that we live on, our homes are on, are all going to be submerged underwater. How do we help them prepare for a situation like this? How do we help people, like you said, people from a different socioeconomic background, people who cannot afford to live in fancy towers and homes, but they have to deal with the heat every single
yeah.
day? Is there something we can do to help them deal with it
So
better?
who are the people who were at this conference? Who
Oh,
were the kind
so
of
many
folks who
people.
were there? Were they scientists? Were they, who was there?
That was the interesting thing. You had all kinds of people. You have people from the government. You had lots of people from the Maharashtra government, obviously, because it happened
Yeah,
in
yeah.
Mumbai. So there was a lot of focus on how Maharashtra is going to do things differently. There was Hillary Clinton, Secretary Hillary Clinton. She was a
Oh,
former U.S. secretary. She was there to talk about her stance on climate change. Sachin Tendulkar came as well
oh, wow.
to give show his support. And we had two super interesting people. That is India's first ever astronaut, Rakesh Sharma, and
Yes.
our current astronaut, Shubhanshu Shukla, who just went to space. He was in the International Space Station for, I think, some 18 days, and he just came back last year in June or something.
So cool.
He was there as well. And I mean, it was interesting. I was reading about it, and they were talking about how your perspective changes when you see uh, our Earth, our beautiful planet from space. Of course, Rakesh Sharma also said that, one of the things that astronauts have reported is what was once described as a vibrant blue dot, that's our planet that they could see, is now a little bit more gray, which is sad to hear.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
that's not very nice. Yeah.
that's not nice,
But
is
it's
it?
also
But
interesting, right? Because when you're in space, you also live with a lot less from a resource
yes,
perspective. So maybe that becomes a way to learn how we can all live with a lot less.
Shubhanshu Shukla did talk about that, the fact that there are no resources and everything is recycled. Right? In fact, he
Oh,
said this
yeah.
funny thing that today's coffee is also tomorrow's coffee. I mean, it's kind of gross, right? But what it basically means is everything. The water you drink, the water that's
Yeah,
in
yeah.
your taps, the air you're breathing, every single thing is recycled. And it's proper, as they say, circularity. And he's like, if we
Correct.
can do it in this space, then I'm sure we can figure out how to make it happen on
That's
Earth as
super
well.
interesting, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Makes a lot
overall,
of sense.
I think it's been pretty phenomenal this week with the AI Summit, the Mumbai Climate Week. India is definitely making all the right kind of moves in terms of making sure that we are a serious player. Okay, so the quiz question this week is: which gas is good when it's high up in the sky in the stratosphere, but it is really bad when it is lower down and is actually a pollutant? Okay, so this gas is
Interesting.
good, yeah, when it's up around us, forming a protective layer, but is a pollutant when it's lower down and is in the layer of air which is directly above the surface of the earth. I'm going to give you
So when we
options.
breathe it, it's bad. But
Mm-hmm.
when it's up in almost towards space, then it's fine.
Yeah, stratosphere, it's great. Troposphere, not great. Okay, so that
Okay.
is the question this week. It may sound a little complicated, but it's super interesting when you do actually look into it. I urge you, do research this and then give us your answer. The options are option 1, hydrogen, option 2, nitrogen, option 3, ozone, and option 4, carbon dioxide.
That's actually a tough one. Lots of
Mm.
options over there.
If you actually think about it
Yeah,
nicely,
I know.
the answer is there. So anyway, I think I
Okay.
think our listeners will have fun. Send in your answers, because if you send in the right answer, you could win a Takaro Kids t-shirt as well as a gift voucher. Just send in your answer to www.takarokids.com, or you can DM us on Instagram and we will pick one winner, not the first, not the last, not the second, not the third. One lucky winner who sent in the correct answer.
On to last week's quiz and the winner. Last week, we asked you to be like Paul. You remember
Yes.
Paul the Octopus, who predicted football World Cup matches? So we wanted you to predict who would actually end with the highest medal tally in the Winter Olympics. I hope you guys have been following the Winter Olympics. It's been some amazing races, and some of these athletes are just brilliant, right?
My gosh,
Yeah,
the skills are nice.
Oh my
The
God.
figure skating. Oh,
Ooh.
brilliant.
Yeah. So we are recording this episode on a Friday, but the Winter Olympics ends on Sunday, the 22nd. Therefore, we are not going to give you the answer today because, anything can happen in 2 days. So we will give you the answer and the winner for this quiz question and this week's quiz question together next week. Was that confusing? Maybe, but once again, last week's quiz question and this week's quiz question will be announced. The winner will be announced next week.
The
So
winners will be announced.
the
next week.
winners, correct. So make sure you now keep track of the Winter Olympics. Let's see if your predictions have come true, because I've already got a lot of you folks who have sent in your predictions. And also make sure you answer Debbie's question for this week.
Yeah, which gas is good when it's high up in the sky, not so good when it's lower down. Good.
Until next week, it is bye-bye.
Ta-ta.